Hi everyone, and welcome to the Remain Indoors podcast, where we'll be looking at some of the lighter news from around the internet, having a grumble when required, and talking about the ways we're keeping ourselves entertained at home. Remain indoors. Welcome to the stream, here for the next 14 minutes or so, talking about life and stuff and bringing you interesting guests from our radio and podcast network. That 40-minute limit is a strict limit. It's not a guideline, and to help me stick to all the rules of Missed Apex podcast is my co-host, Matt Two Rumpets. How's it going, Matt?
We've just been compared to the Tesco value range, my friend, and I am not sure how I feel about that.
Well, what I would say is that free represents good value, and the people who support us through our other Patreon, patreon.com/MissedApex, also, I hope, get value from being part of our podcasting community. But no, it's definitely an insult.
Okay. I said, well, thank you, Rob. I'll be sure to remember that if and when we ever cart again.
He's trouble coming to the go-kart events with his boys, doing unspeakable things in hotel car parks. But anyway, Matt, what mood do we find you in? I like it because it's in the morning. Sometimes we get a sprightly Matt Trumpets, and sometimes we get I'm sleepy.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the sleepy end of the spectrum this morning. It was, you know how you have these days in lockdown. Some are better than others. Yesterday, my entire family decided to go into meltdown. And this would have been fine, except for it upset my original plans, and I had to deal with actual people and emotions, which is always horrible, as you know.
No, I can completely sympathize. We've got to a stage recently, the last 4 days, and I don't think my wife would even deny it. We've definitely got to the, do you have to stand like that stage of lockdown? Like, oh, you're always breathing. Oh, why do you have to breathe in and out? So I'm definitely getting on my wife's nerves, for sure.
Yeah, no, this is more of an anxiety.
Oh.
You know, it's all going to be, well, you know, because like, I understand, I know we're going to talk about it later on the show, but like the financial situation for us is like Schrodinger's finances. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. It's both kind of optimistic, but also at any minute it could collapse.
Yeah. Well, where we are is basically the wife's salary right now is being covered by sort of mostly by unemployment, but that runs out in July and we don't know what comes next.
Yeah.
So like every other day she decides that we won't be able to afford life anymore. And she was yesterday, this is a true story. She came into the office and said, we should throw out all of your music and we should get rid of all the books in case we have to move again. And I'm like, no, let's not do that yet, please. Let's wait till we know. Well, let's wait till we know we're going to have to burn it all down behind us before we reach that stage. But it was just one of those days. And so anyway.
No, interesting. I wasn't sure I was going to mention this, but, you know, we're in a similar position where we're worried about the future. And, you know, I work in a relatively small trade group with engineering, which I haven't done since September. So if an opportunity comes along, I have to kind of look at it really super seriously. Because I don't know if it's going to be there in 4 months when actually we do collapse and we do need it. The problem with taking that kind of position is I then will have very difficult choices between like radio, Missed Apex podcast, all that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to put it off. But then a top firm came to me with a good position. I even tried to put them off with an unreasonable salary demand. And they still wanted to talk to me and interview me. And at the end of the interview, it went really well. I hung up the call and I went, damn, that went really well. I don't want this option on the table, but as a responsible dad, I had to at least see.
Yeah, it's funny how that works. I remember auditioning for a music festival back right before I went off to graduate school. And they loved me. They sent me an offer. It was like I had to pay like over $1,000. This was in the 80s. So that was a lot of money. It's like, yeah, whatever. Not going to bother. And then they called me back the day after it started and said, what would it take to get you here? And I said, well, my last month's rent's $300. I can pay that. They called me the next day and said, how soon can you be here? So it's funny sometimes when you try to I really didn't want to go. I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to go do this now.
Yeah, you've actually given me no choice. I have to say yes now. But in a spate of what I think is probably good news, I got an answer phone message from the recruiting agency. They always go through an agent and said, could you call me back? I've got some feedback from your interview. And I figure, yeah, no, that means you didn't get it, because they're going to give you feedback. It would be, they want to talk to you again. So feedback means, here's me being a good recruiter telling you why they didn't want you. And it's fine. It was a senior position, but I'm sort of half relieved, half disappointed. It's a strange place to be. So for the minute, still full steam ahead, trying to do all this talky stuff.
Yeah, it's good. And I got to say, thank you, Mark Green, how your accounting of entertaining yourself has now cheered me up slightly. He says, I'm keeping myself entertained by my 9-year-old son, not recognizing that the math we do every day is the same thing. It's the same thing. Why can't you see it's the same thing? I've had similar incidents with my daughter. So yes, I feel you there, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, look, we're not alone. We've got someone from our podcast community from the Missed Apex fraternity joining us. It's Chris Stevens. How's it going, Chris?
That's going great, Spanners. I mean, boy, the podcasting shed sure does look different with all this green background stuff going on.
What are you on about? I'm not showing you my green background.
I've watched parts of the stream. I know the different aesthetic you got going on.
Oh, I see. You're pretending. That is really good acting, Chris. You're pretending that you're seeing it from the live stream's point of view. I thought you meant the shed you could see on the call, not the live stream. Yes, I have got a different background for this. Okay, so I wanted to use the Missed Apex background because I really like it. It's got like studio lights and everything. Steve's like, no. Steve is our video producer for Missed Apex. He's like, no, that is the brand for Missed Apex, and you're not ruining it with your stupid random remain indoors stuff. And we had an argument about it, and his final argument was, fine, I'll make you a brand new set from scratch. And I was like, fine, then I'll use it. Thank you. And he did all this stuff in like a couple of hours. And I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, that's brilliant. Cheers, Steve. Everyone should get a Steve. But Chris, you and I, we've had a strange relationship over the years. I think it's fair to say we've been podcasting together for the last 4 or 5 years, at least, I would say.
Yeah, since 2016.
Yeah, since 2016. And in 2016, how old were you?
Good question.
I mean, it's not that hard.
I was 19.
Yeah, 19. And I do remember I identified you as someone who was a good communicator, and you were always on the Bubble F1 news, and really useful for us, Matt, wasn't it? You know, with the news cycle, we knew we could go to Chris for any subject, and he would at least know the names of the people involved and give us an outline of the story.
Yeah, but it was his strong opinions on things that sold us.
Well, we used to always give you a lot of grief, Chris, because you were a young budding journalist at that time, and we would be like, hey, Alonso punched that guy in the face. That was pretty bad, huh? And you'd be like, oh, well, you know, there's all different mitigating factors, and you have to say, you know, was it technically a punch, or blah, 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 or was he defending himself from a wasp that was nearby? And like, you would never just... shove. Yeah, you would never just go, yeah, he's a smeghead. We should berate him. Like, you were always very neutral.
Yeah, I feel like I've come out the shell a little bit.
Not out loud.
I mean, I do think when it doesn't come to just like saying, "Oh yeah, that guy sucks," then I'll say something.
Okay, fair enough. But you used to drive me mad. I'll be completely honest. As a 19-year-old, you annoyed me a lot. Not really because of you, just because of innate things about young people. Like, young people are scatty and selfish and weak.
Hasn't changed now that I'm 23, has it?
I mean, it's changed. Feckless. I mean, it's changed a little bit in that, you know, you will take timing seriously. You're a professional adult human being now and things like that. But also, like, when you're 19, I guess, 2 weeks is forever. 2 weeks is a magical adventure, and so much can change in 2 weeks. And in 2 weeks, your opinion and your enthusiasm goes up and down like that. Whereas when you're like late 30s, I mean, 2 weeks is a heartbeat.
Yeah, I've already noticed that, to be honest, especially because, you know, when you start working so much, I think when you have this really regular schedule. So for us, it's motorsport. And because it's on so regularly, the time just flies by more and more.
All right. Well, tell me then, because, Matt, I thought we could treat this as a bit of a ask a young person thing. So Chris is now, what, 23? 23?
23, a couple of weeks ago, yeah.
Okay, so...
As far as I'm concerned, that's like baby.
Exactly. Absolutely, 100% baby. But the thing with you and me, Matt, is we've already got a fair way into our lives. We've loved, We have lived our lives in the company of love. You with Amanda, me with Nicola, and loving children. And we have a lot of fulfillment from that. But when you're young, there's still a lot of like, you don't know how it's all going to work out. So as far as Chris knows, he may die alone and never find love. So like, it's a completely like different life feeling, isn't it, Matt? And we could ask him about that.
Yeah, we could, man. I've almost forgotten what that was like to be unpartnered in a significant way, as in, will I ever find someone?
Well, what is lockdown like? Because I've had my family around me the whole time. You've been living at home, but as a single virile young man, that must have sucked. Like, I definitely would have broken the law if this had happened in 2002.
Oh yeah, man, it's tough. The fact that it's not just being stuck with the one other person who lives in this house. It's the fact that, I can't do my usual young person thing of just going out to the pub with my friends and having a laugh, and then going and talking to that girl over there and whatever. It's so hard.
So what have you done? What have you done dating wise? Because you're still, you're out there dating. Yeah. Have you hit up the apps trying to make links for the future? Have you can admit to breaking the law. There's an embargo on podcasts. It's like being in international waters.
Okay. No, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've been tempted, and then they made that whole sex is illegal thing between other households.
They made sex illegal.
I was kind of already on the apps because I think just being my generation, we like swiping through people and making our minds up about something in 1 second, rather than wasting time talking to somebody. And it's like, man, it could be 3 hours before I know if I like you or not.
How much were we told, don't judge a book by its cover? I mean, in the Tinder age, that's literally all you're doing is like hot, don't like the bad bangs, and it's the worst. Like, everyone's parents is disappointed with everyone who uses Tinder.
It's so terrible. But also being bisexual, it's a great way to meet guys as well, because you don't meet guys, not where I'm from anyway. You don't meet gay dudes or other bi dudes like out and about.
What are you saying? You're the only bi in the village? Is that in your area?
No, well, there was the one guy.
There was another one.
There was another one, and then he moved. So.
Mark is commenting in the chat that they made sex illegal and we didn't really notice. Am I right, married guys?
No comment. No comment.
Matt, I hate that so much.
Matt, crank your mic up a teeny tiny bit for me. Sorry, buddy. We didn't have a lot of time for sound check today, so I hope we're sounding okay. My fault. I did a bad thing out on a run, and you can still see that I'm sweating and red-faced from the run that I finished now an hour and 20 minutes ago. I may be suffering from some kind of medical condition at the moment. So if I collapse, carry on without me and tell them that I loved my shed.
Do you know what you need to do? You need to go and get this that fire cupping done.
No, Chris.
They what?
Do you know what it is?
Yes. It's woo. It's utter garbage.
Worthless. Tell me you don't do that. It's not called fire cupping, was it?
Dude, I don't exercise enough to need fire cupping.
Sport is the worst for pseudoscience. I remember the 20-something Olympics. I think it was the one after London. So 2016. All the athletes were all turning up with these kinesiology strips, and that just gave like the biggest advert to that woo. Kinesio tape. That was it. So everyone was putting it on to like heal your muscles. But the thing is, you didn't even put it on a place where your muscles were hurting or anything. It was manipulating the flow of chi around your body. And it was all based on, you're like, what? You are grown-up athletes. But the thing is, because it's athletes, they can go, well, I just ran the 100 meters in a second. So it definitely worked.
So there's a comment in the chat that my Tinder bio was better in person, I promise. I think I can relate to that because I always think about, I always liken myself to Ted in How I Met Your Mother. And he says this bit where he's like, I'm not some, top 40 hit single that's easily digestible. I'm like Stairway to Heaven. I require multiple listens and an open mind.
Oh, that is, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so you're dating on the apps. There are different apps depending on what mood you're in, I presume. And I tell you what, we are going to talk about like gay pride and the LGBT community. And I'm going to try and not demonstrate my normal level of deliberate ignorance when I speak to you on the topic. So I usually like refer to you privately as our Missed Apex token gay. So I'm looking at my diversity sheet. Yes, we've got a lady. Yeah, good. Yep. Sarah's on. We've got an OAP. That's good. We've got a foreign. Oh, that's good. Look, we can tick off a foreign. And we've got the gay as well. So, there we go. And you quite rightly, get upset with me and go, no, I'm not gay. I'm bisexual. But it's just hard for, old straight guys to wrap their head around what that means. Is it like a wine? Is it like, just depends what mood you're in or whether it's before or after dinner?
Oh, I don't know if it's a mood thing. I think it can like depend on like the season and the time of month as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
It really does. It switches up so much because some days you go out and you just like every dude is like super hot and you're not paying any attention to women at all, and then you'll have the complete opposite the next day. It's really weird.
I mean, you're not obliged to put your flag in the ground, but increasingly I've noticed, maybe I'm paying more attention on social media and stuff, that within that community, there's a community of bisexual people who are like, no, this is a thing. You're not allowed to just go, or you're just kidding yourself, or you're greedy. As hilarious as that is, it's an actual identity, and you want to be able to claim that and go, no, it's a thing that you can understand if you can bother understanding.
So I don't mind when you do. It's become a bit of a running joke. I'm sure the first time you did it, I was like, no, this is a thing. But now it's just become a running joke. Yes. But when like other people actually try and take that identity away from you, then I get annoyed about it, because even like gay people deny the existence of bisexuality. And I'm talking like a small percentage.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, that's right. That is what I'm doing when I say, no, if you kiss a boy, you're gay. What I'm doing is I'm robbing you of your identity, and that is very wrong. Obviously, that is all meant with the kindest will in the world. But at the moment, I mean, you're, for especially a lot of the Missed Apex panel and our podcast group, you're our window into the LGBTQ community. And we've learned a lot from you, to be honest, and it being Gay Pride Month now. Now? It started?
This month. So, so you have the Pride Month, and then it all culminates in the Pride Week and the parade in London, which probably isn't going to happen this year because of, the obvious. So that's a real shame, because it's just this big festival of positivity. And like, where do you get that these days? Great question in the chat room, actually.
Let's do it.
And it's a genuine question. Does it make it hard for partners to trust being bi?
And Chris will get back to you once he's had a proper partner. No, I'm only joking. I was going to say that you identify as asexual at the moment, I would imagine, if you've stuck to all the laws. But yeah, if you're in a relationship, does it make, because there's twice as many people for your partner to be suspicious of?
Yeah. I mean, there is that, but trust for me is so it's like a two-way street, obviously. And I think, if I put that trust in them, they should be able to put the same trust in me. Let's assume that if a person I'm with is straight, and they're like, oh my God, but he could just go off and do anything. And they're like, but just because I'm attracted to a higher number of people, maybe it just doesn't increase the chance that I'm going to be unfaithful to that person.
I wonder if it doesn't change. It still depends who's hotter. So it just depends. Who's the more attractive in the relationship? So who's got the most to be insecure about?
Who's the reacher and who's the settler?
Okay. Oh, right. Okay. Whew. I thought that was gay language that I was going to...
It's, I got to say, because the last one I was in, I was definitely the reacher. I can't deny it. She was so awesome. And I was just like, I couldn't, I was worried about her more than anything.
Well, how are we doing so far, Matt? I've tried to not be a phobe of anything, but wave wildly if I say something that betrays my generation's inherent bigotry.
Way too late to be giving me that instruction, my friend.
Damn it. Okay, look, real talk, Chris, because, you are sometimes a public figure. You are put yourself out there in public. You put your work out there in public. and you work in motorsport, which is traditionally like a high octane, manly men. Not that gay people can't be manly men. I'm talking stereotypes. It might be problematic for a young man deciding whether or not to be open, which I don't think you've always been as open. Whereas increasingly now you're like, no, I'm cool. I got my rainbow tattoo. Look at me. You wear it literally on your body. There we go.
Yeah. So viewers of the live stream can see that.
Can't be an easy decision. And I genuinely, hand on heart, I cannot imagine which way I would have gone.
It's very weird because I came out when I was 17 and started working in motorsport the following year.
Yeah.
So for me, it was already one and done, the whole coming out thing. Suddenly I was in a whole new environment, and I just never really talked about it. I just never brought it up unless somebody brought it up with me. I wasn't going to do this whole thing. I'm like, oh, by the way, I'm bi. And they're like, no, if you ask me about it, and I'll casually say, oh yeah, my ex-boyfriend. And then they do that thing where they're like, oh.
Yeah, there we go. Well, it's not,
and then they assume you're gay. And then later up, you'll talk about your ex-girlfriend. And then they go, oh, again.
Yeah, I mean, I guess largely, it's none of their business. I suppose my fear, especially coming from a mixed family and now looking more European, where I go, oh, I can get away with it. If I don't mention it, they'll mistake me for like Italian or something. Whereas there's that temptation. If I was my age and gay or bisexual, there'd be a big temptation to go, if I don't mention it, it can't cause me any trouble. But I think your generation's a little different.
Well, yeah, certainly. Yeah, my generation, I think generally speaking, in a very broad sense, would be more accepting. And they're kind of used to it. Whereas when I went to Barcelona for Formula One preseason testing, and I was easily, like, not just the youngest guy in the room, but the youngest guy by decades. Because most of the people that are there, it's over 50, most of them are over 60, and obviously kind of, a little bit set in their ways. And I was like, oh my God, like they're already staring at me like who brought their grandkid, so I'm just not going to say anything. I'm going to keep my head down the entire week.
Yeah, but they're really staring at you like that because once you get to our age, generally talking to people your age is just like, well, boring because you just don't know any of the things we know.
Oh, I mean, wow, we've got real generational wars. Going on here. So, I mean, it sounds like so far it's not really caused you any problems. But then when it comes to things like gay pride, it turns it around on its head, and it's about shouting as loudly as you can. And like you say, it is like a festival of joy and acceptance. But that doesn't come without its own problems. People go in. My only objection is a month just seems like a bit too much. Bit needy, that whole month. I think Gay Pride Week. Whole month, yeah. That would be enough. Matt?
The obvious answer is we get the other 11 months, dude. I mean, come on.
Fair enough.
Even
okay.
I know that.
You can't keep it up for a whole month. Not even you at your age, Chris.
It's impressive. No, I don't know. I don't try and like focus all my LGBT positivity into 1 month. It's there historically, and to kind of quote raise awareness. However much more you can raise awareness about LGBT. Well, actually, no, that's maybe a silly thing to say because there's always so much more you can learn. I mean, I'm always every day learning more about LGBT history, for example, and how, the first recorded instance of a man with another man goes back to like, ancient Greece and ancient Roman times, for example.
It always sort of occurred to me that it was never as frowned upon throughout history as it was, but like 40, 50 years ago, suddenly it became like the worst. And I have to say, like, you are in a community because a lot of you and your friends and online gravitate together around this, shared interest and shared struggle. I don't think that's overly dramatic. Whereas people like me and Matt are not overly exposed to it. And so it does kind of run along social circles. So the only other experience I've really had of that community is probably distorted from my 20s, where I used to hang out with my cousin Tony a lot, and all he wanted to do was go to, GOY Astoria, big nightclubs, dress 6'6", really skinny, head to toe in purple drag and body paint and glitter, You know, that was his general get-up. So for me, my view of the LGBT community is just from Tony.
Yeah, sure. And that's why I always make a big deal out of role models that LGBT people have. So the depiction of LGBT people in the media, and especially in things like sitcoms, because they generally really overdo it, or they make it a stereotype. There's very little like genuine depiction of LGBT people in like modern day media.
Dude, my wife is in theater.
Yeah, oh yeah.
My life is nothing but gay people and single women.
Oh, it sounds terrible. It sounds terrible.
Like all of her friends.
Sounds colorful. Sounds colorful, at least.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, before that, you'd be absolutely 100% correct. But since we've been together, I mean, that really has been interesting. So, like, for example, now the new season of Pose has dropped, and that our entire life has been that this week.
Brilliant. Well, getting away from that, it was... Sorry, you don't want to, Matt? You don't want to move on? You were alarmed at my moving on.
Yeah, you know what that is, right?
No. No,
Show
that's
on
why I
Netflix?
moved on. No, go on. Tell me about it.
Yeah, no.
Tell me about
Go
it.
on Netflix. Pose. Yeah, no, go. It's about the balls in New York City. It's a fictionalized account of the balls in New York City.
Oh,
There's 2 seasons of it. You
as
should
in
go watch it for sure.
As in like a
Loads of fun.
dance. As in a dance. A ball.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly like a dance with lots of pretty ladies.
Oh, okay. Well, can you lead with that next time? Then I won't be so confused. I want to talk about your work in general, actually, Chris, if you don't mind us sort of interviewing you as a subject matter expert. In fact, let's go back. Gentlemen, a brief look back into the history of Chris Stevens. Bit of a niche joke. When I first met you, you were writing, picking up the odd paycheck where you could from journalism, trying to go around the world following motorsport and being in the paddock reporting, but actually mostly you were in retail while trying to make the motorsport dream happen. And I always just thought it was such a weird contrast. So one minute you'd be in a pit lane somewhere or reporting on a thing, and then the next it would be, sorry, we're out of size 10, today. You worked in Top Shop.
Top Shop, Top Man. It was a joint store where I mostly worked in the men's section. And then they asked me to work in the women's section for a little bit, and I had no idea like what to tell people because I had no idea like I didn't know anything about clothes before I took that job, let alone women's clothes.
Yeah,
so people would ask me for an opinion, and I'd just be like, "Oh, that's slay, girl," that kind of thing.
You don't want to be there going, maybe a bigger size, love, and a darker color.
Yeah.
So yeah, you definitely don't want to go around that. I got in trouble with my ex-girlfriend. I thought this would be hilarious. I learned a lesson. Young man, only like 16, 17. She said, does this dress make me look fat? And I said, no, your fat makes you look fat. And I just thought that would be hilarious. And no, that was like a near dumping offense.
It's so awful, dude.
Yeah, I don't think I was always a very good person, Matt. That's my thinking.
Yeah, that probably did not have the intended effect, I'm guessing.
No, and we're not still together to this day.
But you're right about the dichotomy of the two situations. Because one is so awesome, and I would just be riding this high for days after coming back from a trip, or I would have been had I not the next day been shouted at for charging 5p for a plastic bag. The day that came in, got an earful from everyone. It was always so weird, and everyone around me was fascinated by my second life.
Your secret second life,
because it was like leading a double life. It was really weird. I was two completely different people. One where I was in the shop, and I was never happy at the shop as well. Like I was always just miserable and just feigning the smile all the way through, and I did that for nearly 4 years.
I mean, I can relate with that dual life. As I was leaving my last engineering post, it was weird. People going, "Oh, I was listening to you in my garden while we were having a barbecue on Saturday," and it's like, or like, "Oh, I listened to you on the way home yesterday from work." And you're like, "Oh, okay, that's a bit weird." And then there was people in the office who knew stuff that I had said on a show like this or Dad Hub or something. But for you did make that escape. And I think really, I mean, you weren't pushing. I think your primary aim was to be a journalist, but you've ended up in PR for a motorsport company, actually doing some really exciting stuff. I don't know how much you're allowed to talk about, but it's definitely sated your motorsport ambitions.
best decision I ever made moving into PR, because especially in motorsport right now, the jobs in journalism, they're few and far between. They don't pay quite as well as PR. PR is where the money and the jobs are at.
Okay.
And for the first time, I have like job security, ish, to an extent. And I had a regular paycheck coming in, which I didn't have for 4 and a bit years, while I was, trying to get freelance work every now and then, and just blowing any money I had going to races. Which is why, that's why I never learned how to drive or put a deposit on a flat or anything.
Wait, can you drive?
All my money on flights and hotels.
Can you drive now?
No, not yet. I'm still saving up for the because it's been a year since I took this job, and
Matt, he's 23 and he can't drive. Sorry, Chris, sorry, you've got to be quiet for a second while me and Matt mock you.
What? I'm sorry. Hello, he can't drive a car?
He can't even drive a car. What an idiot!
No, can you tie your shoelaces? I'm concerned for you.
How do you go to places? Like, do you have to bum a lift off everyone? You're that guy. Chris, learn to drive a car. Jesus, you've got a job and you're 23.
I know, but I don't need one. I don't have to drive to work. There'll be nowhere to park anyway. I never have to drive to anywhere. I need a car a total of like 2 days in the year, maybe. And on those 2 days in the year, I can get around it. But I am working on the license.
All right. Just know that everyone is judging you. And
I know.
Everything you say now is in the context of you're 23 and you can't drive a car. I would teach you to drive, but I don't want to.
I mean, I can. Like, physically, if I got in, I'd know what to do. I just legally can't do it.
Show me the paper, the license that says that you can do that. Oh, that's right.
I have my provisional. It's downstairs.
Oh, jeez. That's bad. Anyway, let's go to, PR. The mechanics of the job now in PR. It's super exciting, man. I see, like, big teams posting stuff, but it was you. And I see, posters and promos and campaigns and strategies. And we've learned so much doing our motorsport podcast from you telling us and giving us this insight into, what it means when certain teams are doing this. Or like for me, like I've now seen certain drivers post something and I go, you didn't post that. You've got like a Chris Stevens behind you doing that.
Yeah. I love everyone's got their own little Chris Stevens, and that's a terrifying thought. No, I love it. I love the breadth of clientele we have as well. Like, it's so different. It ranges from GTs, single seaters, and top drivers, and gentleman drivers, and that kind of thing, and all the different needs. And I have to adapt, like go from one to the other in blink of an eye. And it's super challenging, and I really do enjoy it, especially the creative part of it. And since lockdown, I've had to get more creative with it because there's no racing on. So what the hell do you post about? It's really fun.
Has there been a lot of pressure from clients to like, right, okay, keep us relevant? I'm not going to tell you how, because that's your job, but please just keep me relevant till I'm racing again.
No, yeah, it's true. The goal is keep us relevant, keep us not in the news, but remind people we exist. And with some clients, it's really easy, and others not so much. With some clients, we got lucky because of the whole esports thing. They got like really involved in that, or they had to. So we could feed off of that a little bit. Others, not so much. And so we were having to just come up with completely original content all the time. And just the amount of time we're sifting through stuff to make sure we have enough.
Okay.
But it's really cool.
So we should just go to the chat room because someone's mocking you, and I want to make sure we highlight that. Grant says, my 3 daughters passed their driving tests when they were 17. I think everybody. Oh, and he's just posted the same thing again. And Beth asked a good question. Well, she asked, do any of the drivers actually post their own messages on Facebook or Twitter? And I'm assuming they do. But what do you reckon the proportions are as we get towards the top? Like with F1 drivers, how many of them? I reckon Ricciardo is sat there, Daniel Ricciardo, the Aussie, sitting there doing his own tweets, and maybe Lando. But I don't think, Marcus Ericsson, like no way on earth his social media is from him, for example.
Yeah, I think it depends. I think most people will leave their Twitters to the driver because you can have a little bit more fun with it, unless there's like, oh, this is an important post, so we're going to take over from this one. But I think things like Facebook, Instagram, well, it depends. Some drivers are like really protective over their Instagram, and they'll be like, no, I'm doing my Instagram. But then other people will just let them go with it. And some drivers are not interested at all in social media.
Yeah, so
I think if you're at the Formula One level, you don't need to promote yourself. You're promoted enough. You know, there'll be pressure from above to do that, but there isn't an obligation to do so, really.
Interesting. I have hired. Oh, go on, Matt. You go first.
Well, I mean, since we're bringing up chat room questions, I think this is interesting because you did have, I believe one time, did you not have a client who shall remain utterly nameless who posted against their own best interest on Twitter? And related to that question, Mark Greenhow asked, how would you deal with a driver who turns out to be a massive, he uses racist, but let's just assume, could we use the word tool? Is that okay?
Yeah.
On a live stream, like how would you deal with that?
So it's tough when people decide to go rogue, and especially because I personally don't understand it, because they're like, you hired me to do a job which you're now trying to do. So why bother? Because what they end up doing is usually pretty sloppy and whatever. So generally it resolves itself with a quick call, and they're like, look, please just let us do the thing. If you want to say something, say it to us, and we will be the ones to convey it properly. Not you getting angry and posting something. Now the whole, being a tool section, luckily I've not had to deal with anyone like that. Most of the people I work with are very, very lovely. But beyond that, there will be like immediately, I think we jump on, remove what was ever, whatever was said, have very stern words where needed.
It's amazing what a PR firm can do for you. I have employed my first ever bit of PR. You were unavailable, Chris. I did offer the job to you first, but realized that as a media entity, Spanners Ready Media was leaving a lot on the shed. So we're trying to promote ourselves properly for what we can do, what we can provide. And, we needed the front of shop to be better than me just jabbering at a keyboard. We all know how bad my typing skills are. And so I brought a professional PR guy in there, hired a couple of hours of his time. And when the words arrived of how we wanted to, promote ourselves, when either someone found us or we approached them, and the strategy that he gave me, I suddenly went, oh, geez. Yeah, I mean, that is where you earn the money. And you leave so much on the table by not having PR.
Yeah, for sure. And it's amazing how people, they approach you and say, oh, we want PR. And they're like, okay, what kind of thing do you want to do? And they go, well,
I tell you what, this guy just came to me. He said, right, here's 10 questions. Answer these 10 questions. I answered them. And then what came back was just this amazing kind of text. And I was like, oh, wow, I suddenly look professional for once. Matt, you were trying to come in.
Well, the subject just moved on since I was trying to come in, but I did become curious, Chris, since you were talking about how you would deal with someone who was, revealed themselves to be truculent or difficult or not the kind of thing that sells cars on Monday, let's say. But I'm curious, since you work in a firm, is there a line if clients cross it where your firm is like, sorry, we are done with you? And is that different now to how you think it used to be?
Oh, that's a really good question. I haven't been in that scenario, to be honest. Well, yeah, I don't know if I have a good answer for that.
I realize that's not your pay grade yet, but but since now you're in the business, it does seem times are changing to a certain extent. It was a curious thought that crossed my mind.
I think in the majority of situations, we're the ones getting paid, so we are always the ones who want to keep the work, no matter how much it destroys us. But I think, there must at some point be a line that you do or don't cross.
Brilliant.
And I've killed it again. Literally, the whole conversation just died right there. Congratulations, me.
I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't talking over you or I wasn't ending a subject that you had more things to say, because I always do that to you, Matt. That's the one thing we fall out about. Chris.
There are some really good questions in the chat room, actually. I've missed a couple of them.
Go on then.
Sorry. But there's one here. Do I, as a PR guy, have an influence over strategic policy? For instance, the case of Audi firing Abt. So stuff like that, no way. There are some clients we have where we advise a lot on the more management kind of thing. So we had one driver in particular where we've been trying to guide them, the future of their career, where it's going to be. You know, it wasn't necessarily going where he wanted it to be. So we presented him with some alternatives, which at first, you know, wasn't received very well, but then very quickly we like realized actually, yeah, we need to start thinking of an alternative. But we wouldn't be able to say like, oh yeah, you need to like sack this guy like right now. It will be a case of, look, this is how this looks, and if we do this, this is how it's going to be received. Or, and you know, it's all about the image. We need to decide what kind of team if it's a race team, for example, what kind of team are we going to be? What kind of team are we going to present ourselves as? Sorry, I hit my mic stand. I've done a Jeansy. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. The best thing to do is to never draw attention to it, but we always do.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask a related question. I mean, you're talking about, you know, dealing with all these people, but this wasn't something that you had formal training in before you took this job, other than your on-the-job exposure as a journalist to PRs. How has learning to do this job changed your view of social media and how you interact with it?
So social media was always for me predominantly Twitter, and it was just a case of promoting news stories, really. And but definitely since taking this job, I've learned how different platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, how they all act differently. So when I do something on Instagram, how is it different to what I do when I do it on Twitter, for example? And how to get the most out of them as well. And it's so nice to see how communication works from the very beginning. So the boss of a race team, I want to convey this thing. It goes down to the marketing department. It goes out to the public. It then gets picked up by the journalists and then goes out onto their publication to the broader public as well. And that whole journey of communication, I've now seen it from, you know, all ends of that scale, which is really interesting and kind of it's really satisfying to see.
Brilliant. And I wanted to mention an advert that you pointed out. So like obviously related to PR and media relations. Tell us about this advert.
So I was scrolling through Facebook and obviously it's one of those, just Facebook sponsored ads. And it was for lifts in your shoes. And it said it adds, like 3 inches to your height. Now, first of all, it insults you by saying you can't work out how much taller you'd be with 3 inches. So it says 5'10" will make you 6'1". They're like, cheers, I couldn't have worked that out for myself. But then it just, in the middle of the advert, it comes out with, no woman wants to commit to a short guy.
No, it didn't say that. It didn't say that.
It said so that. Awful. It is the really strong. It even says just in bit like it's even got like some woman being like, like, oh, get out of here, you short person.
Ugh, your bones aren't even long.
It's just so. I was like, how is that even legal? How is it legal?
It's because all advertising is ultimately fear-based. They're just saying the quiet part out loud in that particular clumsy application.
I think it's systemic of a deeper issue, though, because I think to say something like that in an advert, you have to have some sort of... Now, are you slagging off
short people?
No.
Wow.
Ooh, you're a PR man. You should be careful about that.
Oh, no, I've mismatched my own PR.
In front of everyone.
I think to say something like that in an advert, you have to back it up with some sort of evidence. They say, oh, we did a survey of like 10 people or whatever. And they're like, would you date someone who's shorter than you? And because they've all, been indoctrinated with the whole, oh, this is what men are supposed to look like thing, they'll go, oh, no. And so they're like, oh, well, fine, we can use that in our ad now.
Yes. As much as I enjoy you advocating for the evidence-based community during Pride Month, I'm going to point out that reality is making the opposite point.
Yeah.
Evidence is the last thing you need these days.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So you were saying, is it even legal? The chat room saying, oh, I thought Chris liked spanners. Yeah, I'm not a really tall person. I don't have really long bones. And you say, oh, is it even legal? Like, I'm completely short. I'm completely used to getting short jokes. I mean, geez, on the engineering firm and in the military, every conversation with me was, oh, you're short, you're small, you're tiny. I mean, I'm 5'7". I'm not a, I was going to say I'm not a freak, right? But even if you're short, that doesn't make you a freak. But I'm not abnormally short, given that I'm half Filipino, half British. So average Filipino man is 5'3", and the average Brit is 5'9". So I'm actually a little taller than you might expect from my genetic makeup. Yet I am constantly given stick and abuse for being short. And actually, we see that it's completely acceptable in society to mock short men for being short. And I can't imagine any kind of equivalent where, like, you wouldn't mock a black person for having curly hair, but you can mock a Southeast Asian for being short. When Mark Francois, the MP who leads the ERG, and frankly says some very hurtful and very, he says some really bad stuff. Like, I think he says stuff that is deliberately offensive, and he knows who he's speaking to. But when the left, if you like, attack him, they call him things like dwarf and attack him for being small, and all the negative connotations are small is bad. And think of all the kids, all the little boys growing up now who are beyond average height, all basically being told, Chris, by adverts like that and by society that you're not good enough or you're less of a man because your bones are not a certain height. But yeah, and that advert is just, it's feeding on it because no one's going to complain. There's no consequences to it. And they know that some short men are going to see that and go, oh, I could be a little taller. I'd love to be 3 inches taller. If nothing else, it would have stopped a lifetime of people going, yeah, look at you, you're really small.
Yeah, so I succumbed to like one of the muscle-based ones where, like, I'm not a muscular guy. I'm pretty okay with it. But then there was one that just made it sound so easy to get ripped. I was like, screw it, I'm gonna try it, and I haven't touched it since.
And somebody is saying, yeah, but I make fun of Northerners all the time. Yeah, but you can cure that. It's really easy. You just move. Like, no, okay, that's not going to endear me to the Northerners at all, is it? No, of course. Look, I'm a big fan of giving and getting stick. I'm just always interested that there is absolutely there's no shame to mocking someone for being short, which is just a physical attribute. There's a lot of other types of shaming. But yeah, I don't know. I've always just found that interesting that it's fine. But what I used to say to people in, particularly in the engineering environment, I didn't like getting belittling short jokes from people that I knew I could beat in any physical contest. Yeah. And I was just like, no, because you're scoring like quote unquote man points by going, oh, you're small. I'm such a bigger, better man than you. So here's what I did. And this is not a good example to my children, but I would say to those guys, look, if you want to mock me for being short, that's fine. If you want to score man points over me, that's fine. But there is a boxing ring in the gym upstairs. Doesn't matter who wins or loses. I just think that you should go 3 rounds with me to earn that. And then I'm happy. You beat me, I beat you. It doesn't matter. Because we mixed it together, you have that right to belittle me and say short stuff. All right. The thing is, there wasn't a boxing ring upstairs. I just knew that they were the sort of person who would never explore the gym. But I tell you what, I did that a handful of times, and every time it shut them up because I knew they wouldn't do it. And you shouldn't be able to just score cheap macho points. Matt.
Can I, as your PR person, advise you to stop using the word belittle?
Why?
Oh, no.
Belittle.
He's short-shaming me. He's short-shaming me as well.
I'm just saying you're pointing out something and you're just like making it, you're putting the red flags on it.
Well, I would have a PR man properly, but Chris abandoned me. What's your point, Chris?
When you got in the ring, like just before the fight, did you sort of lean forward and go, I must break you?
No, they never did. They never did. Because A, they didn't know where the gym was. And secondly, they didn't know that there was no boxing ring in the gym. Well, I just thought, if you're going to do that, you should be at least willing to have a scrap.
We have a good question from the chat room for Chris. Obviously the question for me would be better, but Chris is here, so we'll ask him. Would you prefer, as a PR, would you prefer someone who's higher profile but gaffe prone? Like they mentioned Ferrucci, but I don't think Ferrucci can be technically qualified as gaffe so much as more falling into our tool racist category, or someone less well known that is a good driver but known as a good person. And you give the example of, say, Tony Kanaan, who at least those of us in the US are known. So as a client, is it more fun to work with somebody who's challenging because they go out and go off book and then you have to clean up messes, or do you prefer someone who follows orders and does exactly what you tell them and has a good reputation to start with?
No. When I say I like a challenge, I don't mean somebody that is been villainized in motorsport, which is what, you know, Ferrucci has become basically. And so I would always.
Which one's Ferrucci? Is he the one that hit a car under the safety car?
No. He was the very right-wing American who stormed out of F2 after being called racist. So he's not a popular guy in Europe anymore, really. But always, I would take the guy who is going to give me what I need to help make him look good. People always think that PR is going to be like, oh, you just do everything and I don't have to worry about anything. No, it's a two-way street. I need you to work with me on a lot of things, right? Because for the most part, especially like, you know, they're going to be on site. I probably am not going to be on site because they don't want to pay for my flight and my hotel and food and everything. So you got to help me out there, but you also got to provide me with some content. You got to give me information. You got to tell me what's going on. And you get drivers, especially when you ask for something and you just never get it. So a team I have at the moment, we have two drivers. One of them is always switched on, and I ask for something and I get it within, you know, a few days, and we get to do some much more fun, creative stuff with it. Whereas the other driver, because he doesn't respond, you know, he doesn't engage with us in the same way, so he's left out a little bit.
So following up with that, Jack Trigg says, take someone like Raghunathan. Would you want him as a challenge? As a challenge, do you think you could actually do something with that?
So this is an F2 driver who's a little off the pace.
Yeah, a little off the pace is an understatement. He's not in F2 anymore, actually, which I think most people are very relieved about that. I think that you could make him look good. I think the big mistake was going to F2, to be honest. So if I was to take him on now, the big thing would be to try and repair the damage that F2 season did, because he never should have gone there. It's funny because he won a championship in somewhere. It was the MRF thing in India, which isn't saying a lot. It's a very small championship that isn't hotly contested. So there's, but then you focus on that. You still say, oh, he's a championship winning driver, and so then you take him to GTs, and suddenly he's a great bronze driver. It comes with a lot of money. A lot of GT teams would be like so willing to take him on. That's where you should have been pushing him, not Formula 2.
Brilliant. We're coming towards the end of the show. Thank you so much to the busy chat room. Someone in there said that I'm the typical angry short guy. Yeah, no, I guess so. It is a symptom of my upbringing. I can't apologize for it. It looks like you've all really enjoyed Chris's motorsport PR talk. It's been a great insight, and I think we could definitely, talk about it again. We could go into a deep dive if you want to join us again on Remain Indoors, Chris. But I think we can ask you some of our icebreaker questions in a moment after Matt says a thing.
Well, occasionally there's just a comment in the chat room that you really feel deserves to be read, and there's just, as clever as you are, there's no real way to work it in the conversation. And so I just have to shout out to Caterham Nut, who says, now I'm older, it is all about manipulating the cheese around my body. And yes, this is true.
Oh, I can relate to that. My gosh, I'm really in a diet phase. I'm fighting back against the lockdown weight. And I know for me, Matt, you seem to be able to restrict calories quite easily. For me, it's a real struggle, just bringing back the urge to begin eating and then stop eating. So portion control and the amount of visits to the eatery. So for me, I have to be uncomfortably hungry all the time, or I know I'm not losing weight. And that's the phase I'm in at the moment, which is I'm just like, oh my God, I just want all the food now.
Yeah, I think I would easily be 3 or 4 kilos lighter if it weren't for all the stress baking that constantly occurs in the house. It's just,
Yeah.
and it's not true. I do have a hard time restricting calories, but I happened upon a solution that works for me to keep it within a reasonable window.
Tell me it.
That's all.
Don't say it out loud. Jeez. Look at me. Do I look like I don't want to hear that advice?
Yeah, you're not going to want to hear it because you're going to starve for about 2 or 3 weeks before you get used to it. But for me, the intermittent, what do they call it? Like the 16-8 solution.
Yeah. No, I've done.
That has worked out pretty well for me.
So this is where you have all your calories within a 8-hour period and you have 16 hours off. I've used that successfully in the past. And generally for me, it will be the morning. So after I wake up, I will hold off eating. I'm not like a huge breakfast person anyway. So that means I can happily eat between 12 and 8 p.m. And that's not a drama. I've done that before. And I've heard some of the theories where if you use up all your fat, your energy that's rolling around in your blood supply, in your glucose, you get rid of all the glucose. So therefore your body has to turn to fat. I've heard all those arguments as well. But, it balances out so much that tends to be irrelevant. I think it's more about you're restricting the amount of time where you're tempted to go and eat food. And that's the main one.
Well, here's the thing. I've discovered, because I'm actually more on like an 18-6 than a 16-8. And I eat dinner and then I'll have like a snack later on, like some mixed nuts or something like that. And what it does is effectively you can't consume a full day's calories in that shortened time period. Your stomach just simply won't clear. So you can't eat as much as you would eat if you were unrestricted. So for me, it was always just about the calorie restriction mainly.
Yeah, no,
it's a natural way.
Jotma's, he's come in and he's done this thing. He said, eat less, move more. That's how simple it is. Yep, I'll take things skinny people say for 500, please. Yes, of course. Calories in, calories out. You can boil it down to that. But then there's a whole nother factor, which is life and compulsion. And there's lots of other reasons to eat. Sometimes people stress eat. Sometimes people overeat because, they're not in control of what they eat or when they're going to eat. Sometimes people are restricted in what exercise they can do and what lifestyles they can do. So it's a little simplistic, I would say. That's all. But you're right, the Jotma. You're basically right, but it's just more complicated than that.
I actually read a little article about diet today, a study, and what is getting a lot of stick now, and I will just point out for people, is the ultra processed foods.
Okay.
Versus so you could eat, let's say you could make spaghetti bolognese at home with your own ingredients, or you could buy the jar of sauce. Basically buying the jar of sauce, and actually this is a bad example because it's not sauce usually all that processed, but the more processed the food is, the more likely you are to gain weight to it compared to if you did it at home.
Okay.
And had fresher ingredients.
Fair enough. Citation needed, but I'm sure we could do a deep dive into that. Let's just end the show with a couple of icebreakers. I picked these out before. These are random questions that I found on like a Facebook. I'm bored, I'm going to put up these 40 questions to answer them. And I quite like some of them. But with you, I decided to go to the bottom, and I swear this is not based on an earlier chat. The question is, do you like camping? That's not a reference to your sexual choices.
I hate camping with a passion.
It's bad, isn't it? It sucks.
It's terrible. Why bother?
I just don't like that there's no security, is there? Like, you're out with your family and you're in a tent, and you all fall asleep. Just like, if you want to come and rob and murder us, now's the time. Yeah. We have never been less secure than we are right now.
I never thought of it that way. For me, it's just like, why would I enjoy sleeping in a very stuffy tent on a cold day, usually on a horrible hard ground, with where I can't I have to go into a bush to go and take a pee, and I'm cooking food on a stick. Like, no wonder everyone gets drunk at those things. It's the only way to survive them.
It certainly is. And I don't mind a pee in the bushes, but I tell you what,
I don't mind a pee in
the bushes. You look at you pee in a bush, that's fine. But when it's the other one, when it's the number two, I'm very much an indoor cat. And I used to, when we were forced through occupation to be out in the woods for, a couple of weeks at the time, I would certainly pick a diet that would minimize the amount of those kind of trips I would have to take, because it's terrible, isn't it? You're indoor cats, stay home.
I'm a city boy.
Yeah.
Right? I've grown up in the city, and I'm terrified to move anywhere that's like 10 underground stops away from where I am.
That's hilarious. Taylor in the chat says the thing with camping is you don't go with your family, you go with your friends, and then you just get too drunk to care.
That's
I think even my friends, even I'm tight with a few people from school still. Even camping, that would destroy our friendship, I think.
Connor makes a good point, a little bit of a callback to kind of what you were saying, Matt. It's much easier to control calorie intake than it is to maintain a high level of activity. Many modern foods are hyper palatable. And he plugs another podcast, Stigma Nutrition. I think that is true as well, because you think about a run and a Mars bar is about the same amount of calories. So much easier just to cut all the chocolate and snacks out than to have to do an extra run a week. I'm really frustrated with myself at the moment because I feel fit, cardiovascular, my legs, they feel fine, but it's clearly the diet that's letting me down at the moment. We can do a whole show. We could get like a nutrition expert or something, Matt. Let's line something up. Get the producers onto that immediately, Matt.
I'm on it even as we speak.
Here we go. Here's a non-controversial, just, light and fluffy question. Do you believe in God, Chris? I don't know. Do you believe in any kind of God?
I do not.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
Very much a sciencey
man.
person.
But what if God was a scientist who put everything there for us to discover?
Well, then I'm sure science can prove that fact. But I don't believe in a God.
Okay. You've never believed in a God. How about your parents?
Oh, I used to, because it was the only thing I knew at junior school, because it's really forced on you when you're a kid.
Yeah,
because you go into your assembly and then you pray, and it's like, oh, we just do this. This is the totally normal, and there are no other. This is what everyone does, and I have a huge problem with that.
Good. That wasn't that awkward. That's just your opinion. Okay, good.
Yeah, sorry.
I can't end the show without mentioning this. I'd like to say I don't get on my soapbox, but I guess I do. I do every now and then. Something upset me on the Twitters, Matt. Something upset me. Can you believe it? Can you believe Twitter upset me? Unbelievable.
No.
There's a story in the UK. You're probably not too aware of Marcus Rashford. I gave you a bit of a brief on that story, but he's been involved in making sure that kids who would normally be saved by the system, the school system, eating food at school, being like one of their best forms of nutrition, are suffering during the coronavirus. They're at home. They're not getting that same level of nutrition. But he was heavily involved in a very generous campaign to try and rectify that, and putting a lot of pressure on the government to help out over the summer holidays. And the government turned around, and I watched our Prime Minister sit up in government and say, we don't normally help during non-school bits, so there's no reason to help now. Marcus Rashford has made that campaign go viral. He's made it so that the government has had to now do a U-turn on that. And Marcus Rashford just posted a happy tweet saying, wow, this is England. I'm sure he's saying this is England, not what you saw on the streets the other day. This is England. We can get together and we can do the right thing. So there's a man who has campaigned for months to get hungry children, food. He is now celebrating that he's convinced the government to agree with him and give them food. And then there's a guy on Twitter, and there's lots of people actually in the replies. One of them went, a victory for champagne socialism. And you go, what is happening in 2020, Matt, where there are people angry and upset and sniping because a young man is happy that he's convinced the government to not have children be hungry? Who goes on Twitter and is like, oh, everyone having enough to eat? Boo. Anyway, that's my rant. That's it. Wasn't happy.
How can I argue with that? We have a program in New York. They feed kids year round. Because I remember I took my daughter swimming, and she was maybe 8 at one of the pools, one of the community pools, one of the public pools. And they said, oh, your daughter, how old's your daughter? Oh, we have free sandwiches for any kid that age. No questions asked. and they do it. They feed them out of the schools. We have free. She doesn't even pay. You don't even have to pay for your lunches anymore. I mean, like, of all the, I mean, so many politicians and so much of the world has done a very good job of convincing us that our interests are always diametrically opposed. That if I do better, it's only because you've done worse, and so I should not care how you do. I disagree with this fundamentally as a philosophy of how the world actually works. In fact, I know it's completely wrong, but we can have that argument on another day. I demand anyone who says something like that, show me how starving children makes your life better. And if you can't, then you just need to shut the letter up.
Yeah.
And I'm just not going to have it. I really will not.
There shouldn't really be an argument. So John McClintock says, I got mine, screw you. Yeah, that's the argument. Megalomaniac says, has Spenner's melted yet? No, not melted. Just passionate about making sure that these guys eat, you know, these future human beings, these future adults. Jack Trigg, Rashford's done brilliantly, a very mature young man. He's pulled an absolute blinder there. There is no excuse in our society for not making sure that everybody doesn't have enough food. You know, it's Britain in 2020. We can literally very easily, it wouldn't even be that hard to how, you know, resources wise, to make sure everybody, especially children, gets to eat. You know, it's the lowest possible bar that we're achieving, and then there's still people on Twitter who are getting angry about it. So there we go. It's not the funnest theme to end the show with, but anyway, I think it was a good news story overall. In any case, we are here on Tuesday. It's Tuesday now. We're here on Thursday with Dr. Andrew Holding. We're going to have another science show, Matt.
Yay! You know, I love me some science.
I love that. Catch up with our guest today, Chris Stevens. He's at Chris on Racing on Twitter. Matt can be found at MattPT55. You can email him, mattpt55@gmail.com. Follow me. I'm the best one, at Spanners Ready. Try not to rant too much. Come and catch us again on Thursday. Until then, work hard, be kind, and have fun. And remain indoors. If any of the issues on today's episode of Remain Indoors podcast have affected you, call our helpline on I don't know. That's good. I think we had fun and a rant.
Fuckyourself.com. That's